Hi, everyone. This is Catherine Adams.
And Elizabeth Wallace. And you're listening to Binary System Podcast number 8. And this week we're recapping Welcome to Night Vale, episode 71, The Registry of Middle School Crushes. We're going to go listen to this episode, and as always, we encourage you to listen to it, because when we come back, we're going to spoil the hell out of it. See you in a minute.
That's a good way to welcome us back after a hiatus, I think. A good old-fashioned heist episode.
Yeah, and a good way to usher in the 4th year of Welcome to Night Vale, actually. It was a nice little intro.
Amazing.
Yeah, can you believe? Well, 3 years. This is going into the 4th year anyway. So
right. Well, I mean, if anyone is curious about all the stuff that's going to be happening in the next few months with Night Vale, basically just go to the Welcome to Night Vale website, because there's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, they're doing... Yeah. 2 different touring shows, I think, basically. I mean, they're doing their live show, but then they're also doing the book tour, and just all over the place. So tons of places. They'll be coming close to me. They'll be coming close to Elizabeth.
And both the live shows are going on both in the UK and the United States. They've added a 3rd show in London. I cannot imagine how sold out it must have been, like, in London to do 3 shows. That's crazy. So very nice, very fun.
So to start out the episode, though, what do you think about the new intro music?
Well, as I guess with a lot of people, I'm like, I hate change, but it was, it was nice. It was definitely Disparition music, but totally new intro, which I guess, going into your 4th year, change is good, I suppose. But I suppose it'll take some getting used to, I'm sure. So
I think so.
I didn't hate it.
I didn't hate it, no. And the story itself today, I thought was, it was a good old-fashioned heist episode, an adventure story, and all sorts of things about sneaking into locked vaults and Carlos having to use science and all that, but I really thought some of the side bits were almost more interesting than the main storyline.
Yeah. We heard about how Hiram McDaniels is going to be going to trial finally, which apparently they don't usually have trials in Night Vale.
Yeah, I think this is going to be leading into a great big storyline in the future, because in the past, I think in Night Vale, they either let the secret police handle it or the city council handles it, and the city council usually handles it by eating the wrongdoer, so they just leave everything to them. But Hiram McDaniels is big, and I think the city council and the secret police have chickened out, and they're just handing it off to trial. And it should be really the trial of the century. I mean, Pamela Winchell's going to be the prosecuting attorney, and the defense is Hiram McDaniels, basically.
Yeah, his gold head will be doing the defense. And of course, Violet will be actually a witness for the prosecution, so he'll be taking the witness stand against the other heads, so that's all going to be interesting. And it's going to be in front of a jury of his peers, so they invite all dragons to come to the courthouse to be one of his peers, and failing that, any multi-headed creature, which they're not really sure what that would count, except possibly deer, but, deer can't really be on trials. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, deer are anarchists. Everybody knows that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely, absolutely. So that wouldn't work.
I want to hear a little bit more about what prison life is like for Hiram McDaniels, because, of course, even though Violet gets a little hole that he can stick his head out so that he's not technically in prison, I'm sure the other 4 heads have had something to say about Violet's thwarting them, basically. So, and now that he's the witness for the prosecution, I mean, almost got to imagine they're going to have protective custody for Violet. How does that work?
I have no idea. It starts getting more and more complicated. I'm like, does he get to eat different food from them? Because everybody knows prison food isn't that great, but maybe, he gets better food outside, but it's probably all going to the same stomach. So I don't know. Complications.
Very complicated.
Yeah.
One of the other side bits was just the one little puzzle that they did about spot the differences. So.
Yeah, when you usually have 2 different pictures that you look at, but this was apparently an audio puzzle that you had to figure out, and I think one of them was in the second picture, the cow has all its blood. So, predictably creepy.
And one of them was only the first picture scares me.
Oh, and we also got to hear about Night Vale's version of, like, Loot Crate or the Marvel Collector Core, those boxes that you get every month with different things in them, which I don't think I could ever do, because I don't know, chances are there's going to be something in the box that I didn't want, and I'm like, well, no, I just paid money for something that I don't want to own. So
I'm basically just like, I have so much trouble with clutter in the house. I don't want a guaranteed box of extra clutter that I don't entirely know what's in it every time. But of course, I'm no fun. That's basically.
No, that's not it. That's not it. It's just I'm frugal, and by frugal I mean really cheap, but that's okay too.
That works as well.
Jada does one for a cosmetic company. I sent her a text and asked if she could tell me which one it is, but I haven't heard back yet. But she really liked them, like nail polishes and lotions and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I have nail polishes in my fridge that I'm currently not using, so that wouldn't work for me either.
For some reason, I get the idea I'd only get much out of one that has different kinds of, beer or something. It means no clutter, because basically you drink it and it's gone.
Yeah, I've heard the same for like one that's like different kind of cheeses, and I'm like, oh, I like cheese.
Also good.
But once again, cheap. But so this is the Night Vale version of it, and it's called Venom Box, and it sends you a box full of venomous creatures every month. And
I love the theme names. I mean, I could sit down.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking the Tumblr people are going to have to think up all new different themes for this sort of thing, because the first one, last month's was Hidden but Deadly.
And the one for this month I loved, Fanged and Impossibly Quick. So, and apparently it comes in a very flimsy box as well. So
yeah,
that's always fun.
That was a wonderful quote from Cecil, that the only thing worse than getting a box full of venomous creatures is getting a box that was supposed to have venomous creatures in it, but doesn't.
He definitely started out really enthusiastic in the beginning, and by the end he's just like, I've almost died several times. So,
and apparently you order it by not ordering it, or by trying to keep it out of your house. So either way, you're going to get a box of venomous creatures. Good luck.
We also had the traffic, which I guess you could probably sum up the traffic by calling it Presumably, because it's about a woman who's going into a bar with a car that she presumably bought at some time, presumably in the past, and she presumably grew up and was a child, presumably, and had a mother, and then it kind of goes to where she's asking for a drink from the bartender, who presumably was very nice and presumably was leaving his shift, and gets out into his car and goes home and presumably lives his life and has tons of regrets before he dies. And I'm like, that got dark really fast.
It took a turn there.
Yeah, it really did. So that was our traffic.
But then the heist was very meta, don't you think?
I do. Yeah, the plan is Janice, Cecil's niece, really wants to get a hold of the Registry of Middle School Crushes in order to destroy it. So she got the help of Cecil, Carlos, Steve,
Abby.
Is that her mother?
Yeah, that's her mother. And
right.
old woman Josie, with all of the creatures that cannot legally be called angels.
That's right. And they all had their plan in this. And at first Cecil didn't talk a lot about the plan because he didn't, want to give too much away. But then he's like, oh, I can't resist. I have to give you all of the details about it. And it's a very complicated, kind of fitting that Mission Impossible just came out. So this is kind of fits in with that sort of theme right there, because it's all like, they're lowering themselves on harnesses that Janice made from a home cat burglar kit that she got from a box of cereal.
And you've got the angels are tampering with the thought detectors, and then they've got, strapped frozen peas to them to thwart the heat detectors, and then they have to hook up a whole series of mirrors to show an empty hallway, and just all very complicated. And Cecil's talking about all this, and like, oh no, I've just found out. The city council found out that this heist is going on. I don't understand how that could happen. We'll take you to the weather.
I like the weather this week. It was kind of fun.
It was a toy piano was a main part of the background noise.
Yeah.
I like that. For some reason, that's always appealing to me.
Yeah, it was kind of like, almost like a 60s kind of tune at some points, but also like a Broadway musical in a couple bits.
Yeah, what was the band name and the...
The band is Toys and Tiny Instruments, so that makes sense.
Appropriate.
With the piano. Yeah, and the song is called My Postcard, but it's definitely, I liked it. I thought it was fun. It was good.
Well, we get back from the weather, and Cecil says basically that none of that stuff that he mentioned actually happened. No.
Nope.
Everybody
he was just telling a story.
Yep. Everybody except Janice is still at home, asleep in bed, and he told that whole story basically to fool the city council, because they go roaring down into the basement, into the registry, throwing open all of the doors, leaving Janice, who has taken her wheelchair down the elevator and has been sitting there waiting, and when they go past, she just slips in and grabs the Registry of Middle School Crushes and leaves.
That's it. I like how they said that she went down there in the elevator in her stealth wheelchair of her own designing. I'm like, oh, that's cool. So,
Janice, so basically Janice is starting to sound more and more kick-ass every episode.
yeah. Yeah, surely is. Surely is. So instead of being this big multi-person heist, it was a two-person heist, Cecil and Janice.
And then Cecil had to talk a little bit more about, just basically about stories and how the universe begins and ends with a person sitting at a campfire telling a story. I like that. It was very Neil Gaiman, I thought, sort of idea.
Extremely, yeah. And then we close the episode, and we have a new outro song as well. I'm like, well, change. Oh, no.
I don't like change. No. I don't even know what to think anymore. It was a nice song,
but still, it was different.
It was different, yes.
That's all for the episode. it was a nice, short, to-the-point episode. Very fun. It was a good story. It was just sitting back and listening to a story, which I like.
But other than that, what has been going on? I'm in the middle of season 2 of The Walking Dead, so slowly but surely creeping in. I got to the well zombie episode, and I'm glad that you warned me about that one.
Yeah, everybody talks about that one. That one was intense.
The walkers thing, it's kind of a variable contagion sort of thing, because everybody talks about the fact that, of course, if you get bitten by one of them, you turn into a zombie. And though the well zombie didn't bite anybody, his top half was still up on top, but, he split apart and all those pieces go into the well, so they have to fill in the well, because, of course, that's no longer usable. So, but then you have things like Daryl chopping off zombies' ears and hanging him on a string around his neck. Meanwhile, he's bleeding all over the place from having fallen down a hill. So, it just seems like zombies are amazingly contagious, and generally people don't tend to care. It's like, you would think that they'd be walking around with spare gloves and whatever, just in case they came in contact with something that a zombie had touched.
This is awesome, because for me listening, and I'm sure for any other listener who's already caught up with The Walking Dead, there's some information you're going to get. So once you get that information, there will be a lot of questions will be answered. All of the questions that you were just asking, you will get an answer to all of that.
Okay, so basically they've covered this. That's good. I was starting to get a little worried that it was one of those magical things that's only really, really contagious when they need it to be for the story.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I remember there was an episode of the Comic Issues podcast where I'm talking to Anthony and Drew about this, and I was just wondering, it's like, but then, and how does this work, and how can they drink stuff, how can they eat stuff? And they're both nodding, they're like, you're going to find out. And I'm like, okay. And you do.
Okay, so. Well, that's good. I did 2 episodes today, so I'll have to see if I can power through as many of them as possible, because the first season only had 5 episodes. That surprised me.
Yeah. I don't remember why that was a thing.
Maybe they just basically weren't all that sure that people would take to zombies, but they did.
They sure as heck did. And I actually just got done with the Sense8 show, the Netflix original show. It was good. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. It's short. It's probably only, I want to say like 13 episodes maybe, but it's very slow going, so you really kind of have to, and I went into it knowing that. I heard that was the biggest complaint about it from people, is that it takes a while to get geared up. But it's such a visual show, so interesting. So many great scenes, and the payoff for getting through the slow bits is always good. Every time there's always something that's going to happen. You're like sitting here and see this one scene go by, you're like, yay, awesome! So yeah, it was a little bit of an odd ending, though. I'm not entirely sure. It wrapped things up a bit, but at the same time left it open for a sequel, which I had thought it was based on a book, and I thought that the show just followed the book and then it was done. But it does seem to be left open, and it wasn't quite as satisfying as I was hoping. But all in all, I really liked the whole show. So
well, I may have to give that a try. Yet another TV show. Nathan actually started watching Orphan Black, and he's watched the first 2 episodes, and he said, you need to watch the first 2 episodes, because it's really good. So, yeah.
I've heard a lot about that, yeah. We had talked at one point, before you came up with the idea of binary system for the podcast name, we'd talked about other possible names, and I wanted to do Clone Cast, and I think we may have mentioned this on the show before, but that's actually an Orphan Black recap podcast.
Oh,
so okay. Yeah, so interesting.
Appropriate, very appropriate.
Yep. Nice.
But the other thing that I'm trying to catch up on is Danger Mouse.
Me too.
I am
It's
glad.
So fun.
I'm so glad Netflix decided to upload all of them in order, because now I just sit down and binge watch like 2-3 episodes a night. Just still so much fun. It holds up so well, and this show
really does.
is at least 35 years old now, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And or 33, I think. I think in September when it comes out will be to the day 33 years since the very first episode aired. And it's interesting, in the panel that we went to at Comic-Con, they were talking about how Danger Mouse is considered a comedy in the UK, but that Americans tend to consider it an adventure show. And I liked what you said about it. You're like, that you didn't consider it an adventure show.
It's a bunch of surreal things happening. It really is.
Always weird, very weird from beginning to end. Like, some are just over the top weird, like the Dream Machine or the custard. Oh, that's a weird one.
Almost like an acid trip, I would have to imagine. Just random.
Definitely.
The hallway scene from Yellow Submarine, where the characters are standing at the front of the hallway, and there's this endless hallway stretching out beyond them, and random doors opening, and just things moving back and forth and chasing each other. That happens in a Danger Mouse episode.
Yep, it's definitely worth a look, and the episodes are like, 20 minutes tops, and those are the really long episodes, so just sit back and watch a few episodes.
Yeah, and apparently for a little while, I checked Wikipedia about the episodes, some of the individual episodes were 5 minutes long, which is why, but we only ever saw them in two-parters when they aired in the US, so, because they would just cram them together, which I kind of think flows better. I mean, I can't imagine watching a 5-minute episode.
I've also been trying to get caught up on all the Transformers issues, and they just released, time of recording, last Wednesday, the Combiner Hunters one-shot. I highly recommend it. It was really, Sarah Petrie-Droscher does the art, and it's really gorgeous. And the colors, I forget the colorist's name, I apologize. The colors are really very interesting. They're kind of like, I put up in the review that they're really saturated, but they have this almost faded texture going over top. Beautiful stuff. And the story's great, and it's sort of opening up a new arc to happen. And you've got Windblade in it, but you have another fan-created character in there, but it doesn't feel to me like a fan-created character. It's not like something like all thousands of fans like, oh, do this. No, it feels like well-planned and well done. And so I want to learn more about this character.
Now, the artist, is she the same person that's done issues of Windblade before?
I don't think so. I think I can't remember her name. I'm a bad fan. No, I want to say that Sarah Petrie-Droscher has done a bunch of covers, but I don't believe she was Windblade. I'm not sure. I got to look it up. I should have probably looked it up before we started this podcast, but now I'm too lazy to check. But really beautiful. Really, really very, very beautiful. And I guess not this coming week, but the week after, we might get a new More Than Meets the Eye. So
I really hope that there's going to be another issue of More Than Meets the Eye this Friday, because I'll actually be working at the office this Friday, which basically means that after I get off work, I run to the comic book store and I buy a whole bunch of comics, and I go to the coffee store and sit down and drink a lot of sugared stuff and read comic books. And sometimes I wonder if I'm even an adult now, because it doesn't feel like it sometimes.
No, hell no. And hell with that. Who wants to grow up?
No.
If it means you can't go get coffee and read comic books, I don't want to have any part of that.
No.
Yeah. But that's all for this week. Please send us your fan art recommendations or fan art that you've created. That's fine too, because we love all of it. And you can get this podcast on iTunes, look for Binary System, or you can also find us on the website at PixelatedGeek.com with a lot of reviews. We've still got content that's coming through from Comic-Con, lots of pictures. If you were a cosplayer at this year's Comic-Con, we have so many cosplay pictures. You just might be in there someplace. And if you see yourself, give us a shout out, because we like to give you credit. That'll wrap us up. So we will see you guys in 2 weeks.
Talk to y'all later.